Good morning. Um, I truly hope that you were able to enjoy your spring break, at least somewhat. I want to apologize a little bit for my colleagues who were sending email after email after email after email over the spring break. Um, but you have to remember that we're all in this together and everyone is kind of feeling the stress. And I don't think those emails were meant to stress you out or to make you feel like you had to do things. It was just more of teachers trying to be prepared as much as possible. So try to remember that. There's a couple things I want to talk to you about today. That was the first one. The second one is I want to talk about a couple of tips to make this kind of thing a little bit easier. For me, and I'm sure also for you, these past 17 days have been able to blend in together into one huge blob of break. And it's hard to remember really what happened on any specific day. We were trying to go over some of the meals that we'd had, and it was even hard for us to figure out what we had even eaten just because the days are kind of blending in together. Really, each day is just a combination of cooking, eating, and watching Netflix. So here's my suggestion. My suggestion is that you make a schedule. Set yourself up a specific time to wake up, a specific time to go to sleep, a time to eat breakfast, a time to eat lunch, a time to have dinner, and most importantly, when you're doing your AMI, divide it up. Do half in the morning, do half after lunch. Give yourself a nap. It's something that you always say that you want. I would love for us to have at school. And so you actually have time to take a nap in between your classes during this time. So go ahead and take advantage of that. Go ahead and do that. I think it would be amazing. Humans love schedules. They are good for us. They calm us down. They make us feel less anxiety and less stress. And more importantly, they make us more productive. And if you're like me, as you can tell, I haven't shaved, productivity has kind of gone out the window with all of this mess that's happening. And so if we put ourselves in a schedule, it's going to make it a whole lot easier for us to be productive. Number 3, and it's why I did my last video outside, that's why I'm doing this video outside, is look on the bright side. This is the first pandemic that any of us have actually experienced. Yes, it's scary. But the awesome thing is that if we stay inside of our house, we're going to be fine. You are going to be fine. There are a ton of resources for people who do have to get out and work in this, for them to disinfect themselves and minimize the possibility of bringing this virus into the house. So do that. But also remember that this is the only time, the absolute only time in history where you have the ability to shape your own education. You can literally homeschool yourself. How cool is that? You can choose the things that you love and focus in on those things. You can find something that you maybe didn't think that you would even like and learn at your own pace and learn as much as you want without anybody stopping you. I know the first time that I took a debate class, it felt like the class just zoomed by, and then I had to go into math or science class, and it felt like I was getting something taken away from me that I really loved each day. And now you don't have to do that. You can focus in on the things that you truly care about. So now's the time to dive into whatever it is that sets your soul on fire and learn as much as you can. It's also time to spend with your family. So maybe play a puzzle, play a game of cards, or watch a movie together. But more importantly, have a chat with them. Get to know the people that you live with. And let's not squander our ability to solidify our family bonds and even our friendships, but let's keep that electronic during this time, because it's going to be an important time that we look back on. And if we waste it, we're going to wish that we had those days back. And so let's not waste it, guys, okay? Number 4 is I want you to turn in your work electronically. And I'd said that before spring break, before all these emails started rolling out, that I wanted you to turn it in electronically. Because we can spread this virus on paper. And so it doesn't make sense for you to come up to the school and possibly get sick, or for me to get sick by getting your work on paper. So just take a picture of it. You can email it to me. Many of you have sent it on Remind 101. I love that. But please do that. One thing in regards to turning in the paper though is please, please, please put your name and your class period on each page. So not just on the first page if there's multiple pages, but on each page I need you to put your name and your class period written in ink on each page. I already have had some people try to turn in the work of other people as their own. That's going to be an automatic 0 from now on. So let's not do that. We can do better than that. We're better than that. All right, the fifth thing is I'm going to offer up 2 assignments per day. Because as you know, in my class we were about to start in on debate, and I like presentations. I like the ability to get up and do things. I don't like paperwork and paperwork and paperwork. And so one of the assignments will be interactive. The other is going to follow along with your AMI packet. So in the gradebook, I'm just going to list it as Extended Learning Day X, whatever day it happens to be, and grades are going to be the exact same. So you can choose which one you want to do. If you want to do the AMI paperwork, fantastic. If you want to do the alternative assignment, even better. If you're one of those types of people who decides to do both, then I'm going to find a way to make it up to you, whether it be bonus points or seeing if we can exempt you from the semester final. Something's going to happen in order to reward your hard work. And so keep that in mind as you decide what you're going to do. So today, I'm going to start with the alternative assignment. Okay? And I want you to either physically write up or type up your experience over the past 17 days. When you're done, I want you to take a picture of it if you write it, or if you type it up, share it on Google with me, and that's it for you for day 6. That will be your assignment. So a couple of the things I want you to talk about. I want you to tell me how you felt about the virus before we actually let out for school on that Friday. Were you excited about the possibility of missing school? Were you scared? What was your feelings before? And then I want you to tell me also, and you don't have to go in this order, I want you to tell me how your feelings are now. Now that school's been canceled, when you found out about school, what were your feelings then? And how have they changed, or have they remained the same since? What have you personally done to protect yourself in this outbreak? Like, how has your life changed? And then also, how do you feel about living through a time like this? And then the most important thing, and I want you to leave this to the end, is what is something that has inspired hope in your life? And so you're just going to write that out, okay? And it has been 17 days, so I'm going to expect it to be about a page long. And if it's longer than a page, fantastic, because this is going to be for you to look back on also, because this is a unique point in history, and I just really, really think that it's important for you to get that kind of thing documented for yourself. And if you're going to do AMI worksheets, we're going to go back to day 5. Remember, I said to only do the crossword. I've only gotten a couple of those crosswords turned in, so I would love it if you would take a picture of those crosswords with your name, with your class period, send it to me today or tomorrow so that I can get those grades entered into the grade book. All right, so on day 5, we have 3 pages that are dealing with nonverbal communication. We're going to divide those up over the next 3 days, and today I will discuss the first page right now with you, okay? So the very first page, and I'm sorry, my computer shut down, so I'm going to pull up what we're going to be discussing. Only the first page. And then on Tuesday, we're going to go over page 2, and then on Thursday, we're going to go over page 3. So your job is to listen over these next 3 days and write down the answers that are going to happen inside of those fill-in-the-blanks. And this shouldn't take too long. All right, so we're talking about nonverbal communication. And as we've discussed in class, nonverbal communication is very important. The ability to have eye contact with your audience, the ability to use your hands, the ability to not just stand there like a automaton is very, very important in terms of communication. And so, all forms of communication except words is what nonverbal communication is. So it includes sounds, it includes body language, and it includes environmental factors that we'll talk about later on. Right? And then we're going to talk about several of the functions of nonverbal communication. Number 1 is that it does relate. It relates to verbal communication. It often accompanies a person's words. So nonverbal communication doesn't have to happen with words, but often it augments or it adds to what you're saying, and it's really, really important. And the way that it does that is it reinforces a verbal message. So if someone's happy, you're going to see the happiness on their face. You're going to see how their body is a little bit lighter and how it moves. And if someone's angry, they're going to be more closed off. They're going to be clenched. They're going to be a lot less light in terms of their nonverbal communication. B is it contradicts the verbal message sometimes. So if I asked Miss Gamble if she's mad at me, and she said, I'm fine. Then I know the words say I'm fine, but the face, the nonverbals, the crossed arms say that it's not fine. So it can contradict a verbal message. And you should always really trust nonverbals over verbals, because it's a lot easier to lie with your words than it is with your nonverbals. And then it can also act as a substitute for verbal messages. There are a lot of people who just don't feel comfortable speaking, and they will only communicate non-verbally, and so it can be used as a substitute. Number two is it conveys an emotional and relationship dimensions of a message. And so as we've talked about in class, there are some different things that occur based on your relationship. If it's a professional relationship, if it's a personal friendship relationship, if it's a romantic relationship, the different types of nonverbals that you have, the closeness that we allow people to come to us is going to change based on those types of relationships. All right, moving on to the next part. Characteristics of nonverbal communication. Number one is it's subconscious. So we are often not aware of what we're sending nonverbally, and that's why it's so important that we pay attention to them, because nonverbals are subconscious, which means you don't really have a lot of control over them. If you don't have control over them, that means that's the actual way that you feel. That's what you're actually thinking. And so we want to pay attention to those nonverbals, and that's also why we want to cultivate good nonverbals while we're speaking, because we want to be able to project the feeling that we want to be received and not necessarily what we're thinking, because we're not always going to be in the best mood. We're not always going to be happy. We're not always going to be the type of feeling that we want to project to our audience. And so we have to work on feeling those different things. Next is it contextual. So it depends on the situation in which it occurs. So that's kind of what I talked about before. Based on the place, based on the person, it's going to change. Number three is it's ambiguous. This means that nonverbal messages are often open to interpretation and are confusing. So you take everything that I've said with a grain of salt. There are some people who just do not show nonverbals. There are teachers out there who are happy as can be, but they're like this all day long. That's just because that's what their face is. That's what their nonverbals are. So these are all things that you have to take into account, is how does the person normally act? So if they're normally very stoic and they don't show emotion, if they're normally very closed off, then they can be happy while they look like this, and it's not necessarily the norm for everyone. Next is cultural. Nonverbals change based on culture, and we'll talk about that later on with the second page. And then finally, at the very end of this worksheet, we're going to talk about the characteristics of a positive professional image. So number one, confidence is key. Having a strong voice with an attentive and positive attitude shows that you believe not only in yourself, but that you believe in your communication skills. And that's something that we have talked about a little bit in class, is that whenever you look at like Business Insider, whenever you look at all these different high-level magazines, the one thing that they want is people that have the ability to communicate. So this is something that you need to cultivate in your own life. Next is poise. That comes from an understanding of communication situations and a strong sense of what is appropriate and what's correct. And so the way that you talk to your mother is not going to be the same way that you talk to the principal. It's not going to be the same way that you talk to your pastor. It's not going to be the way that you talk to your best friend. It sends out a message that you're in control of communication based on the situation that you're in. Third is assertiveness. It suggests a strong sense of purpose. It means that you're confident in yourself, your opinions and beliefs, and you're not afraid to take a stand when necessary. This is different than just being a contrarian. So being assertive is good, but just being contrary for the sake of not agreeing with whatever's being said when you don't have an actual reason to is going to be bad. But being assertive is always going to be good. And then lastly is immediacy. Being perceived as approachable, friendly, and open. It gives you another's full attention. So we want to be perceived as being immediate, as being in the communication with the other person. And when we do that, then it makes the other person feel as if we actually care. All right, so that is the two different assignments that I want you to do. The first one, like I said, is if you can write out that story about how you've been dealing with the pandemic, that's awesome. If you want to just fill out that first page of nonverbal communication, that's fantastic as well. I love you guys so much. I miss you so much. I'm proud of you who are actually staying indoors and keeping away from people. If we all keep it up, then maybe we can get back to school. And if we don't, then we're going to keep doing this for the rest of the year, and we'll find a way for us to communicate. But stay well, guys.